Well, I guess there's no more question about who's working behind the scenes against both Ferdinand and Mine, as we get the opening scene of episode 32. Pretty much spells it all out. Kind of a laid-back episode compared to most of the episodes, so not too much to talk about here, but either way, let's jump right into it. As I mentioned, yes, having this opening of this episode pretty much have the mother of that one soldier, which I'm not going to say his name again, the Viscountess Dondolf, who is still very badly wanting to get at this priestess that caused the death of her son, even though we would argue it's the other way around. But yeah, there was still a side of me that was kind of hoping that the high priest would not be involved. Like, Mr. Santa is a jerk, but he's actually deep inside somewhere in there, he's still good. Like, he was still turned against this whole situation, but no, he's in the rim too. And yes, we have Count Bindewald, who is apparently the one that brought all of these devouring soldiers to this whole situation. So he's obviously upset that he's lost half of these soldiers, even though it seems like doesn't really care too much. I guess this is kind of one of those moments where you realize that despite the fact that these devouring soldiers are essentially his tools, that he wouldn't want to lose them. It's more of an aspect that he doesn't want to lose that power, not necessarily that he cares about those soldiers, which, I mean, most of us would assume that's the case, but it does seem like that might be the guy that's supposed to come to this church. Because what the agreement that they're essentially making here, at least what they presented to the high priest, was that they want to get Mine. And they figure the high priest is going to be all for this because he doesn't like Ferdinand and he doesn't like Mine. And I assume Bindewald would want Mine because she's a source of power. She's one of these devourers that he could possibly use for his own benefit, even though they clearly state that he is from another domain. So this comes in that whole question mark that there's a conflict here. The high priest is within this domain, but everything matters is his own power and control, and he wants to both hurt Ferdinand and he wants to get rid of Mine. So he's willing to even give this source of power to another domain just for that control. Now, the other thing, it seems like there's a trade in there as well, is that he's going to get this black orb, which I don't know what the black orb is quite yet. It could be something involving maybe this demonic power that they had in the previous episode. But yeah, like I said, there was a side of me, very small side of me, that was hoping that the high priest would just come out and say, no, he's not really a bad guy. He keeps doing all these things that seem shady, but he's actually good somewhere in there. But I think at this point, we could just chop it up as, nope, he just wants full power and he's willing to put his own domain into danger just to have that power and that control over the situation. But yeah, we'll see if this count ends up being the one that ends up coming there. Like I said before, they technically point out that it was somebody that was interested in children, but namely the devouring children. So it kind of makes you question, like, are they able to allow somebody from another neighboring country and domain into this church? Which I mean, I don't see why not, but as long as the high priest is doing it under some other guys. Outside of this, we have quite a bit of doting of Mine with her new brother, going around and telling everybody about him. We come to find out that Otto and Corina actually had their child as well, which is fantastic. And then on top of that, apparently this is like a season of popping out babies. Maybe it's the season, maybe it was a cold season before and they have children now, I don't know. But yeah, apparently somebody dropped off a child at the church as well, so they have that child to take care of as well. It doesn't seem like they have any sort of recent mother, so Mine has taken upon herself and her group of orphans to take care of the child. It is kind of cute because despite the fact that Mine loves her brother so much, it seems like no matter what child she looks at, they cry. I don't know if that's going to have a deeper meaning or what, like because the child can see this other self, it scares them. But yeah, but at least Mine was able to appease her brother by showing him a picture book, which she's totally dead set on putting together. In this episode, it seems like she's pushing more towards the idea of getting into colored inks, which this got a little bit weird. This got a little bit heavy on, I don't know, the sciences within this world itself, because they get with the Ink Guild, or at least this group, the facility, the people of the facility. They don't have a guild anymore, apparently. They need a new head. They're trying to get Benno to get involved as the new guild lead. But yeah, this goes in this whole thing where they're trying to mix different ingredients and oils in order to make different colors, and it doesn't seem like the outcome is quite what they expect. They get into the fact that this foreman's daughter is like super into meeting Mine. It seems like they make a joke at some point that this is the second Mine that they have, because she's very inquisitive. She wants to get into what causes things, the outcomes, experimenting on things. And it was a little sad because at some point she's upset because Mine isn't as into finding out the reasons why something happens, whereas Mine is more into what the result is. I think that's exactly how Mine puts it. She's like, I don't really care about the process or why, I just want the result. And it seems to shock her because she believes that Mine is kind of like her. This would be a point in which they can get to an understanding about wanting to know the whys. She's like into the sciences of it, whereas again, mine is about the results. I just want this color. I don't care how it comes to there, which technically makes sense. I think what I got from this whole situation was that because mine has this knowledge of things that were invented in our world, this girl assumes that mine figured it out. That mine figured out the whys and everything to create stuff and invent things, while this girl is about inventing it. And I kind of was expecting to get into that. Like, well, how did you figure all this stuff out? You should have known the why, otherwise how would you know these things? Almost like somebody that can point out the flaw in mine knowing this stuff. Everybody, except for Ferdinand and Lutz, just sees mine as coming up with these crazy things, but they don't understand how she comes to those conclusions. And again, this girl would assume that's because she would have figured out the why. But yet here stands mine only caring about the result. But anyways, that's what I got out of it. And again, I thought it was kind of an interesting perspective and possibly can turn to something in the future, that she wouldn't understand why mine wouldn't care. But following this whole scene, we did get a really cute scene with Gil asking mine about the writing board that he was promised. He's like, oh yeah, I promised you one in spring. I will make sure that you get one. I'll get Johan to make you a stylus and everything. I thought it was a really cute little scene because this is kind of reminding us that dedication that Gil has to mine, which is completely in contrast to somebody like Delia, who is constantly trying to appease the high priest, constantly trying to figure out how she can become somebody's concubine because she wants to get out of the church. But even still, a lot of this episode really did try to hit on mine almost trying to sidetrack Delia. She's always so focused on becoming a concubine, almost feels like mine wants to distract her from that. Well, let me give you something to distract you. And she obviously sees that Delia is really good at taking care of this baby, and that she seems to have a fondness for taking care of the baby. And she almost attaches her saying, well, you're pretty much the big sister of this baby. And that immediately grabs Delia's attention. She's all for it. So which does technically get me a little concerned about how this episode ends with the baby having all these spots on him. I'm not sure if that's some sort of measles or something, but hopefully they don't lose the baby, because it really does seem like this is a really good point to pull Delia out. And it's hitting on it as she goes and meets the high priest and tells him all this stuff. And then she mentions, oh yeah, by the way, they have a baby too. And the high priest doesn't care, but Delia cares. So despite the fact that we've always had these moments where mine's trying to pull her out of that mentality, Delia keeps going back to it. And so there is a hope that this whole situation with this child can possibly finally be the thing to really pull Delia out of that mindset. But yeah, solid episode despite the fact there not being any crazy things that happened in it. I guess, like I said, technically the opening scene was the biggest impact. And like I said, you can technically say that Heidi's whole situation with misunderstanding Mine's inquisitive nature about how she invents things is kind of flawed. But like I said, I hope that they possibly will get back into that. Having Heidi really point out to Mine, well, how did you come to these conclusions if you don't have an inquisitive mind like I do? But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button down below, comment, let me know what's thought of the episode. Do you think I'm far off with Heidi? Do you think that was kind of what they were trying to introduce there? Let me know. Additionally, if you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Share this video if you can. It definitely helps us grow, is getting other clicks out there, getting people to come to the channel. Additionally, we hope that you consider supporting us through Patreon or through our tips link in the description below. We definitely appreciate everybody that supports us, and y'all take care.